Does China even pretend to be democratic internally? Yes, it does. There are elections, just the CCP chooses the candidates you can vote for. Yes, there is a pretense of democracy. Democracy is usually used by authoritarians as a way of lending legitimacy to the regime. That's why Assad holds elections. That's why, Maduro holds elections. Not, of course, because there's a real choice, but because you can fake the results or skew the results, and it's like, oh, 99.9% of people support Assad, On the local level, are they more or less democratic than Russia? Man, it's really complicated. I think that Russia is in some ways more democratic than China is, but China's government is much more representative of the public interest than Russia's is, if that makes any sense. There are some elements of the Russian government where they kind of do have it up in the air as like a more or less functioning democracy. Not all of it, not the important parts, but some of it. Whereas in China, from the top down, you have a pretty rigorous and cemented system. But the CCP is a lot more interested in running China effectively than the Kremlin is in running Russia effectively. Like, under Putin, Russia has remained effectively like a petrostate backwater where the vast majority of the country is just left to rot, so the oligarchs can continue to, increase their wealth at the expense of the people. Whereas in China, obviously the oligarchs have tons of power, but there is a real effort to implement policies that expand the Chinese middle class and build them up. Not defending the CCP, but they're definitely more effective managers of state than the Kremlin is. Why don't people protest in huge droves in China? Because they're happy. China was suffering from a massive famine like 50 years ago, within the lifetime of a lot of older people in China. Like, if you're young in China, your parents were probably born in an era where your survival was not guaranteed at all. The Chinese Communist Party in one lifetime has elevated China from a backwater, rural, agrarian state where people were literally surviving off the crops they grew to one of the most booming economies in the world. And that has earned them a lot of leeway when it comes to some of the, Mao set the bar in the floor, Exactly. Yes, there are younger Chinese who are dissatisfied with the government, sure, because they weren't around for the famine. Eventually, there will be mass unrest, 100%. But I'm telling you why right now there isn't. In China, you live in a modern house. Yeah, it's for a lot of Chinese families, not like a tiny portion of them, a lot of them. Your parents grew up in a thatch hut next to a farm, and you grew up in a modern house with indoor plumbing in Beijing. Literally, your parents are telling you, the CCP brought me out of a fucking mud hut in the countryside, and now we live here. It's remarkable. It is an economic miracle. There's no denying that. If only China wasn't hijacked by a fascist like Xi. I don't think Xi is ideologically fascist. I think that fascism, as I've said many times, I'm not the one to invent the phrase, is capitalism in decay. And there are internal contradictions in Chinese, in the economy, in their culture, in their government, that are getting increasingly difficult to resolve through the Dengist liberal model of constant growth and expansion and investment. So how do you deal with a population in crisis, an economy in crisis, when your traditional way of dealing with it doesn't work anymore? Well, you start talking about the nation. You start talking about the homeland, right? That's it's a known strategy. Why don't these situations ever lead to voluntary democratic reforms? Because authoritarian governments never give up power. Or at least they almost never do. It's just not how it works. This is another material condition thing. You can ideologically be as well intentioned as you want, but the bureaucracy is expanding to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy. The state is an institution that accumulates and does not give up power. There's just no getting around it, You got to be careful. The nation states, folks. Didn't he warn you? We keep falling down the stairs. Didn't Marx warn you? What did I tell you about nation states, dog? What did I tell you? It keeps happening. Is there a clear reason for why it seems like politics in the US are so reactionary empty? I'm really sorry. I have to hit it with you, and I'm really sorry for this one. It's because we're a democracy. Representatives of authoritarian countries can be more straightforward because they're not constantly trying to thread the needle of the 1,000 different, like, low IQ talking points that their party reps to try to win over the voter base for their constant marginal 51% over 49% election victories. You see this difference all over the place. I'm not saying fascist nations have, like, intelligent governments or intelligent reps. China does, but not, like, generally. I'm saying that the reason why we're like this is because everyone, including the Department of State, is constantly hampered by the fact that you need to balance your actual position and what's electorally viable, which are very rarely actually the same thing. Whereas in China, he can just say it, man. I mean, he just openly said that he would support effectively, like, ethnic cleansing, subservience of the Taiwanese people, and forcing them all to submit to loyalty to the CCP. And he can just say that. It's not a democracy. He can just say that, you know? Does Xi have any actual opposition in the CCP? I'm sure that he does, but if there is, they keep quiet about it. Xi is very... they have very much consolidated power within him. You know, like he does not have like a tenuous hold. I would say that Xi Jinping has a much stronger hold than Putin does in terms of like holding over the government.